A dark night in a city that knows how to tease gamblers. But on the second floor, somewhere in Chinatown, one gambler is still trying to unlock the secrets to pot limit Omaha poker. Mills Jacko, Private Eye Noir, recently retired. It was one of those early September Tuesdays in Sin City, and as everybody knows, Tuesday is PLO night, a rammin' and jammin' pot limit Omaha tournament. This type of poker game is like making love to a nympho who hasn't slept in 3 days. My goal today was to run deep and make 'em weep. So I moseyed on down to the local casino. The regulars were straggling in, and I knew some live ones were in the area by the smell of gin lingering high in the thick casino air, gently dropping 90 proof droplets on the green felt jungle. I wore my Hawaiian blue tropical shirt that I picked up in 1984 before the war. I got lucky in Hawaii, and I don't see any reason why I can't do it again in Sin City tonight. We started off with $12,500 in chips. Not very exciting out the gate. This hand missed, but I did win a small pot with aces. 10 jack of diamonds. A small bet on the turn took the pot down. No queen on the flop here, let it go. The next hand was pretty much the same. No queen on the flop, had to let it go. And then my first big hand of the night. I like these cowboys. And I like it a lot better when I flop a set. Now, hands like this, sometimes I just like to come along for the ride. I let an aggressive player bet, and I just smooth call, waiting to hit my set. And then when I hit my set, I give them enough rope to hang themselves, and you build up a pretty nice little pot. And then I potted it and went all in on the turn. Of course, nobody could call me because, well, I had the nuts. My stack is about 20,000 now, and I'll show you a couple of pretty hands that missed the flop completely. But I got to tell you, my first table was sweet. Had a couple guys drinking, and they thought they could play every hand. And then I picked up this hand. I limped in. Everybody checked the flop. It came deuce, deuce, jack, and then the turn came an ocho. Yeah, I got a big hand at this point. I went ahead and potted it and took down the pot right there. No challengers. My stack was slowly growing. I think I had over 25,000. I missed this pretty little hand, and I took down a small pot here with this pretty little aces hand. And then came, well, not yet. This was also a nice little PLO hand, but I missed the flop on that one also. It's a good thing about limping in. You don't waste too much money. But then it got exciting with this hand. These are the kind of hands that can get the heart pumping and the blood boiling. I flopped a set of sixes and I bet 2,000. Had a recreational player call my $2,000 bet, and then a young pro goes all in for 3,700. Now I know what he has. I got a good read on him. I know he has the top set, but I'm not about ready to fold my hand for 1,700. And plus we have a recreational player in there, so I go ahead and make a $10,000 protection bet, thinking maybe I can build a side pot with the guy who's drinking. To my surprise, the guy who was drinking goes all in for 27,000. Yeah, I was pretty surprised myself, but I pretty much knew what was going on here. I knew there was two sets out there. I knew the guy, the short player, had a top set of queens. I could only put the guy on a flush draw. So I went ahead and called his $27,000 all-in bet, and it came brick, brick. He missed his flush draw, and I took down a nice little side pot. And things were going well, to say the least. My stack had grown to 50,000. I picked up aces 3 times tonight, all early in the tournament. That's good for building up a stack. And I must remind myself as to why I do these diaries. On days like this, when I'm making good hand selection decisions, I must enter these hands into the poker diary to remind me of how to run deep in a PLO tournament, how to do it. Because when it comes right down to it, what is more important than hand selection decisions? When to hold 'em and when to fold 'em. I mean, hell, it's in a damn song, isn't it? Oh, and I almost forgot. I won a small pot with this hand. By now, the table was kind of leery of me and scared of me. I had a lot of chips and I could bust you. Sometimes you have to be careful going up against the guy with deep stack. Okay, like I said earlier, my first table was sweet. A couple guys drinking, thinking they could play every hand. And but here's the thing: we moved to the main table after I broke the recreational drunk. We moved to the main table. Now my second table was not so sweet. This was the toughest PLO bird you ever wanted to tango with. There was one young, handsome Czech guy running the table over. Lots of landmines and traps. So I mostly threw all my junk cards away, and I only played 2 or 3 quality hands at the main table, but I missed them. I did hit a blind hand. We'll talk about that later. But the highlight of the night for me was a hand that I was not even involved with. But a pretty young filly played this hand at the final table. She went all in with it and won on the river with one pair of aces. One of the regulars hollered out, "Easy game, isn't it?" And we all had a good laugh. So, congratulations, we all made the final table. And I have to say this about the final table: this tournament was not kind to aces at the final table. Luckily, I picked up my aces early on. But in the later rounds here, every guy who picked up aces either lost a 2 pair, and one guy even flopped a set of aces only to get rivered by a straight. So there were some bad beats at the final table. I was not involved in too many hands. Matter of fact, I only won one hand, and this is the one I won at the final table. I was in the big blind, and everybody made a mistake. Nobody raised me, and the flop came 10, 10, 7. I was in the big blind, like I said. I was kind of shocked, but I checked it. And as usual, the guy who was running the table over, he was in the hand. He bet 2,000. I went ahead and made it 10,000, and he thought about it for the longest time. And I really thought he was going to call me, but he eventually threw it away. And it was the only hand that I ever beat the guy who won the tournament, the chip leader. I beat him one hand, and that put me at my biggest stack. My biggest stack was 70,000, and it only went down from there. So I said I only won one pot at the final table, but I did split a pot with the big hand. Now this hand here, I flopped a club draw, and I had a straight draw, so I had a lot of it, and I was getting down in chips, and I called an older gentleman at the table, this older guy. He had played with Stu Unger back in the old days, and we went all in. We both caught the Broadway, but I was free rolling with a club draw, but the club never got there, so we chopped a pot. Well, like I said, I didn't have much luck at the final table, but the final table was rich and chocolatey. It was a very fun table. We had the young beer baron Beck. He's always playing PLO, and he's always winning a lot. We also had an old timer who knew Stu Younger back in the day, had a pretty Filipina filly, and there was an upcoming guy. He was a Phil Ivey look-alike guy. He played a real good game. Had a couple young pros, and of course we had the handsome Czech guy who was running the table over. We battled on for hours. It was one of the toughest PLO final tables I was ever at. I mean, it's really a pleasure to play with tough players. And even though I didn't catch any hands, like I said, it was it was a privilege to play with these tough guys. They were playing their A game tonight. Well, finally, the limits got up to 4K and 8K, and lots of people were knocked out, and we chopped it up. And just to tell you how lopsided it was, the chip leader, he had 400,000 in chips. Yes, he had all the chips, 400,000. He was playing every hand like he should. He was aggressive, and he knew how to, and he was playing well after the flop. He was throwing it away when he had to, and raising when he had to. So anyhow, the chip leader had 400,000 in chips. The next guy, the old guy who knew Stu Unger, had about 40 or 50,000 in chips, and I had been dwindled down to about 22,000 in chips. Yes, it was a rough and tough table, but it's the kind of table that you learn pot limit Omaha tournament strategy. And I'm feeling good. I think I'll take Uber back to Chinatown tonight. Mills, Jacko, Private Eye, Noir, one gambler, one step closer to unlocking the secrets to PLO Polka.